I wanna be like you. 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 Hey there, I'm Elbi Cespedes, and this is my podcast, I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes. So, this is the first episode of my podcast. I'm so thrilled you're here. Welcome to my office. We have computers and microphones and stuff, just like any other podcast. So, what I wanted to discuss with you here today, this podcast is not just me. Don't worry. I got guests. I got tons of people. It's like you don't even know who's coming. But in this first episode, we have a very special guest. I want to talk about the reason why I'm doing this podcast. So I'm a big podcast listener. I listen to so many. Name one, I've heard it. And I think the biggest reason why I wanted to do this was because when I hear people talking, particularly to actors because I'm an actor, but when I hear people talking in general about their experiences, I feel like there's some nitty-gritty that's missing, particularly when it comes to the musical theater industry and theater entertainment industry in general. There's always some, I want to know, rather than knowing just about your first gig, I want to know how you got your equity card. You know what I mean? Equity is the union for actors in stage. Just wanted to clear that up. But yeah, so I wanted to get a little bit inside baseball-y. I wanted to talk to people who I found to be successful and admirable. And that's why I want to be like you. So, our first episode, this is our first episode. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. You're going to love this. You're going to love it. I promise. Our first episode is I want to be like Michele Pawk. Michele Pawk is so important to me personally in my life, but also she's incredibly important to Broadway and the musical theater industry and the theater industry in general. To riff off some of her credits, she's a Tony Award winning actress. She loves when I say that. She always says, say it over and over and over again. Tell everyone I'm a Tony Award winning actor. She's a Tony Award winning actress for her role as Carol Burnett's mother in Hollywood Arms, directed by Hal Prince. Crazy. We talked a little bit about that. We talked about Seussical. She was the original Mayzie in Seussical. She's the original Irene in Crazy for You, which we got into, which was really cool. She was in Sam Mendes' Cabaret, which has now set this precedent for the cabaret that we do. She was in the off-Broadway production of Merrily Roll Along. And most recently, she was in Wicked. She was Madame Morrible in Wicked. Not the movie, but the Broadway show. And next, she's going to be in Just in Time. Just in Time, which starts previews really soon, and starring Jonathan Groff, directed by Alex Timbers, and she's really excited about it, as am I, so we got to chat about that. We got to chat about all things, and she's someone who's really important to me because she was my professor and advisor at Wagner College, and so I hold her really, really dear to my heart, and she is I've given her this title. She's the godmother of I Want to Be Like You. So she's blessing our podcast. She's our first guest. Today, I want to be like Michele Pawk. Okay. All right. Well, this is my podcast. Yay. Oh my gosh, we're doing it. I can't believe it. This is I Want to Be Like You. And today, I want to be like Michele Pawk.
Yeah, I'm scared of that for you.
I think just do a little, you should look right into the camera and you should slate. Just say like, hi, I'm Michele Pawk. I'm using it for the trailer, okay?
For the trailer?
Yeah.
Today I'll be Michele Pawk.
Nice.
Welcome to my living room.
Wow. Okay. So, I want to be like you. We were discussing this earlier, and the reason why I started this thing is because I want to go through the ins and outs, and I want to have a conversation with people who I really admire, and Michele Pawk I really admire, and she's blessing this podcast. She's christening it because you're a first guest. Okay. So I'm gonna start here, and this is gonna be my first question across the board every episode. I've been doing it for so long. Every single episode, this will be the question.
Unless it's an epic fail, and then he'll change the first
Exactly.
question.
You're the experiment. You're the test. You're the guinea pig.
Yeah, this is fun.
Okay. My question is, who was your I want to be like you when you were a kid? Like who, when you were a kid, that you were like, oh, I want to be like that person. And it doesn't have to be like a celebrity. It could be like, I mean, everyone wants to be like their mom, I guess, but that one's a little easy. Give me something else.
I know the first person that came to mind was my dad.
Oh, really?
My dad, I don't know that I wanted to be like my dad, though. So I don't think that's like, this really counts. But he was he was so instrumental in like supporting me, as was my mom. I mean, my whole family was, but you know, he was a dentist,
Right.
my dad, and he you know, he was so jazzed by looking at, you know, mouths full of fungly teeth, and he was so into what he did. It was really sort of motivating. And when it came time to kind of think about what I wanted to do, I used him as an example. So I don't know.
Because you're saying because of like how passionate he was about it.
Yeah, he loved what he did.
Yeah.
You know, and if you
I
have
think
to
that's really
get up-
impressive, especially for a dentist.
No, he loved it. It was crazy.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah, he'd be sitting there looking, because in those days, you know, we didn't have any computers. It was the
Yeah.
70s, and he'd be looking at those journals,
Yeah.
dental journals, and they would be the ugliest teeth. I mean, I could throw up just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Just the teeth, and I'd be like, oh, God.
Yeah.
What? Oh.
Well, because we've talked about like how because I've told you I've had like a really tumultuous time with dentists. Like I'm not I think every single tooth has had 3 cavities. I mean, like really, it's so bad. But you told me, because I remember you telling me that you had a similar thing. No, am I crazy? Am I making that up?
No,
I
did
remember.
not.
Okay, well, I remember you telling me that you had
Absolutely
well with your
not.
because I remember you telling me that you wouldn't use any when you had to get a cavity fill in, and you wouldn't use any like Novocaine or whatever, and you would just tell them
My dad, well, some of it, he'd be like, yeah, we don't have a lot of time. Do you want to just do this? I'd be like, get in there, just do it.
That's crazy.
So it probably a little bit, but you know, because I grew up in that office, it would also be like when I would smash a finger, which happened a lot. I don't know doing what. You go to the dentist's office, and he'd drill a hole in the fingernail, and the blood would gurge because he'd relieve the pressure.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Oh, sure.
Right. So that I grew up in like this tooth is not real, because I fell off the monkey bars when I was in 2nd grade. So from the top of whatever that was, like Jungle Gym or whatever the thing, I smacked my tooth on it.
Oh my gosh.
And all these years, my dad redid this tooth every year. This is why I said it came time to get health insurance, and I was like, do I need dental insurance? I mean, I'm really like good about, you know, cleaning and all that stuff. And then I thought, any day, this has never been replaced. And every dentist I go see, they're like, I can't believe that tooth has lasted you that long.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, I should get dental insurance just in case it goes.
I think that it's funny that you're like, oh, this tooth isn't real, because I'm so glad we're talking about this in the podcast. This tooth isn't real. This tooth isn't real for me. This tooth isn't real.
Oh yeah, I got one back there. It's not right. Yeah.
So okay. So where did you grow up? Where was your dad's dental office?
My dad had a dental practice in Butler, Pennsylvania, which is like 30 miles north of Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Hi, Charlie.
Charlie.
And then
We're dog sitting.
let me add, Michelle's dog sitting at the moment, so that's Charlie. Charlie can say hi. We should get him a mic. Where my next question was going to be like, the question really is, how did we get to be here? Which is a big question. But I was going to ask you, like, what made you, oh, look, Charlie's really attracted to the camera.
Ball. See, Charlie ripped the entire cover off of the tennis ball.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I think right there is good.
Look at him. He's like, what is that? What is that thing?
Do you have a question for, let me see if I have a question for Charlie.
Charlie is like,
no, I was going to ask you, what made you want to do theater? What made you want to do what you're doing now? What you've been doing?
I mean, again, look, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and I think I graduated from high school in 1980. I was super uncoordinated, athletic, like really athletic. I know this dog. He wants me to throw it. Here, Charlie, go get it. Great. This will be really fun on your podcast.
That's why we have the video component. You see, that's the whole thing.
It's good.
That's why
now you
need
get what that noise is in the
thing.
background.
Yeah. They'll get to see Charlie.
Charlie's like, you throw it. Oh, maybe he just wants to lie there. Yeah, so, I mean, in those days, like there weren't a lot of colleges that had theater majors. It just was, especially musical theater, it wasn't really a thing. There were only like 2 that I knew of. I'm sure Michigan probably had one too, but I was super uncoordinated. My mother was a dancer and a gymnast when she was younger.
Oh, I didn't
and
know
could
that.
still at 50 do a handspring.
Really?
At 50, did a handspring in our yard.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no, she was incredible.
That is incredible.
She was incredible. And so I think she, forced me to go to dance class so that I didn't fall every time I walked up the stairs. Never down. Always fell up. Like I'd always spill my milk. I just was like
But
clumsy.
so you went to dance class and then you pivoted to doing musical theater? Like what?
I think because I was really not a very good dancer.
Sure.
Right? And I
Sure.
was in all these like tons of classes.
Yeah.
And it was Miss Lee Garrard, who had a studio in Butler. And she was like, my mother wanted me to do a solo in the dance recital one year. And I think Miss Lee was probably like, holy crap, what are we going to do with her? She really is not a great dancer. And she was like, would you like to sing?
Yeah.
And I had already been sort of,
How old were you said?
I don't know, I was still in high school, so probably 16 maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'd already been when I took piano lessons from my Uncle Vince, my mother would leave the room, and then my uncle would be like, you didn't practice, did you? I'd be like, yeah, not really. And so he'd say, you want to sing? And so he would play, and I sang with him, and then my mother would come back, and I'd be like,
Did you ever go to New York? Like, did you see shows? Like, was that a thing?
My dad would take me to New York.
Okay.
When I was in high school, and we'd do that classic, stay in a hotel for a couple of days and see 5 shows.
Everything. Yeah. Do you remember what your first Broadway show was?
I think, like, I saw the original Evita. I saw some things. I saw a chorus line. I saw, it wouldn't have been the original. It would have been, like, probably the first revival of 42nd Street. And it was such a big deal. Yeah. Because Karen Prunzik, who was from Pittsburgh, was in the company.
It? Oh, that's awesome.
And there was a fire drill the day that we were there. There was some sort of a bomb or fire threat, you know what I mean? And we all had to empty into the street, as well as all of the actors.
Oh my God.
And so they're in costume
too, right? Yeah.
On 45th Street or whatever. And my dad was like, we're going to go find Karen. And sure enough, we walked down that thing. I mean, I'm sure she has no memory of this.
That's crazy.
And we were like, hey, I'm from Butler. And, she couldn't have been sweeter. And yeah.
That's awesome.
So I have that memory.
Yeah, that's really sweet. And so then that made you want to do theater? Like, even when you go to college, like you went to college for theater?
No.
Is that what it was?
Not really.
What did you go to college for?
No, again, pursuing this at that, it just was not a thing.
Right.
I loved it. It was a passion. I did I sang in the choir, and I did the musicals in high school, or plays in high school. But I went to a small liberal arts college for a couple of years.
Right.
And then when you have to declare a major in the liberal arts college, as we know, at the end of your sophomore year, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do, Dad. I think I'm going to be an anthropologist because, those are the only courses I really like. I think my dad was like,
it's a good thing you didn't.
Whoa. Let's back that up for a second.
No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Right? I'd be on some dig somewhere
finding dinosaurs. Right. I took one anthropology course in.
They're fun,
school.
right?
No, it was fun. It was
super
fun.
Interesting.
It was fun. It had me a little like, huh? But it was just like, oh wow, people really do that. Well, that's kind of
right.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's great that people do it because I can't. But okay, so let me ask you this: what would you say then? So you graduate college, and then
I did. At the end of my sophomore year at Allegheny, my dad was instrumental. He's like, "What do you love to do more than anything in the world?" And I was like, "Dad, I love to be on stage. And he was like, well, then that's what you should do. So I auditioned at 2 schools, at Carnegie Mellon and at Cincinnati. And Carnegie Mellon, because I'd already done 2 years of college.
Right.
Carnegie Mellon would not take any of my classes.
Gotcha.
And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do another 4 years. And so I went to Cincinnati, which was great because they let me graduate in 3.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So I only had to do
awesome.
1 extra year.
And so then you graduate college, and what do you do?
I went to work for Disney. Doesn't everybody?
Obviously, I knew the answer to that one.
No, I was so lucky. I got a job right out of school.
Well,
It
that's
was
what I mean.
an
It's like
awesome
when
job.
you, especially thinking, because I feel like in relation to what you're talking about, it's like right now there feels like this like kind of clear path. It's like, oh, you go to college for musical theater, and then when you come out, you have your options of doing X, Y, or Z. And there's plenty of options, but you could just like pivot into this lane,
Yeah.
and that wasn't necessarily the case back then. So it's kind of like, well, what do? You take any opportunity?
Yeah, and you know what? The truth is, there are no clear paths.
Yeah.
Like, you read about Adam Driver, who was a Marine,
military,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, you read about Jane Howdyshell. She didn't really, like, her career didn't start till she was in her mid-40s. And she was like, yeah, what, you know what I mean? So there is no, I feel like, because as you know, I was also a college professor. And I feel like there's so much pressure on young adults now. They feel like they have to know what it is they're going to do, and this is the way. And the truth is, there just isn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Say yes to some opportunities and see what happens. I just said yes. Some of the things I said yes to, I probably should have said no to. I mean, when I look back on it now, but I'm like, yeah, that was my path, right? That was my path.
Yeah.
And then,
So you went to Disney.
Yeah.
And you did, for how long were you in Disney?
a year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I did this like nightclub review
At the Contemporary, at the Contemporary Resort.
in that revolving like restaurant.
That's my home resort, actually. Like we're like in the
What do you mean, home
timeshare?
resort?
So
What does
in
that
the
mean?
timeshare that we have with Disney Vacation Club, where it's not technically Contemporary. It's technically the next door Bay Lake Tower at Contemporary Resort. But that's our home, because they essentially, if you sign up for it right now, what happens is whatever resort that they're building becomes your home, and so you get priority booking to it and whatnot. So that's how I know Contemporary. It's like I feel like I grew up there.
As did I.
Yeah, right. But you performed in the nightclub in the Contemporary, and it was like on like the 13th floor, right?
Yep.
That would like overlook all the. Yeah. Now it's a DVC lounge only.
Oh.
Yeah.
What's DVC?
Disney Vacation Club.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should come sometime.
I should. And we were talking about it. We met a couple of people who work at Disney, right? One was a Wagner grad. She did a year at Wagner and Peyton, and now works for Disney. And we were talking to them at Megan and Ella's wedding.
I was going to ask you about that, actually. I was going to ask you. Michelle just officiated you officiated a wedding in Mexico.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Tulum.
All right. You'll do mine too, okay?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
The
It's
answer is
here.
yes.
It's here. Now it's like there's like some posterity to it. Like now she didn't just say it to me. She said it on camera, on microphone. She's doing my
I am gonna just like let you reserve the
how
right
did you
to
do?
change your mind on
Yeah,
that,
right.
because
But how did you do? Is this your first time doing it?
Yes.
Okay.
It was
I actually thought you were gonna say no.
I
thought you
actually
said you'd done it before.
No, John did one though.
Oh, really?
John did one. That's not true. You were great. He's like thumbs down. He was great. Incredible in Vermont. That was beautiful too.
Were you nervous?
Yes, and I mean, Megan and Ella can tell you, I took it very seriously.
Good.
Because all of a sudden I thought, A, I don't want to mess this up.
Right.
B, it's for posterity, and I love these two so much. I felt like an obligation to just represent, and the whole like week there was incredible. It just was so
awesome.
full of love, and it just was beautiful. So I think I did okay.
When she told me that you were doing it, I was like, oh, I think you just gave me an idea and you don't realize what you I was like, you just gave me the greatest idea ever. Because I was like, I would like to do a destination wedding and have Michele Pawk officiate it. So the fact that I know that she said yes to her, I'm gonna get it.
Yeah, destination wedding was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure. No,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I know.
My parents did that in Dominican Republic.
Oh, they did?
They did like it was a 10-year anniversary. My mother's wedding was not her wedding. The 10-year anniversary was like there.
I said we're going to do that.
Yeah.
I'll invite you all.
Do it.
I'll invite you all.
Yeah,
on the
let's do it.
podcast.
Everyone.
We'll let you know
Everyone who's
where
watching-
it's going to be and when.
Yeah,
Just
right.
show up.
Everyone who's watching the podcast, this is your invite.
It's going to be a party.
Yeah. So Disney. You've not been to Disney though since
No,
you were-
that's where this whole thing started. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I got sidebarred. Yeah. So, and Peyton was like, yeah, Epcot has changed. There were 5
totally
countries when I was there.
It's changed since 2019.
Oh, well.
It's
So
changed continuously.
So
yeah,
I'm
there's
going
more
to
than 5
go to
countries.
your home base hotel.
Yeah, you should. But you've also never been like when you were there was no Hollywood Studios, there was no Animal Kingdom.
No,
yeah.
no.
Right.
Literally, there were 5 countries.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Yeah.
and, people were like juggling in front of,
Yeah. What did you sing? What were you singing in this nightclub lounge?
Okay, it was a Broadway review. There were
Okay.
5 people in it. I'm sure I have like pictures of it. It was hilarious. 5 stools, like really kind of well done and and talented people. Like there were a bunch of my college like contemporaries where we all got hired to go down.
Oh,
there.
really?
Yeah, and it was like an awesome job out of college in
Yeah.
1985. I mean, I made, I don't know, $25,000 with health insurance, and
That's incredible.
it was a lot of money back
Yeah.
then. And
No,
so,
that's incredible.
Yeah, it was great. You only worked 5 days a week.
Oh, that's awesome.
You did 2 shows a night.
And you're working at nights.
Yeah, the hardest thing was Barb Epstein was the woman who created and directed this show. Made me paint my nails. That was the hardest part of the job. She was always like, yeah, you have to have your nails painted. I was like, oh.
That's funny.
Because that's my husband. I literally like bit my nails off with my teeth last night. Just because I was
Bored.
and watching football. And,
Sure.
yeah.
Oh, I see what
And
you
they were
mean.
too long, and I was irritated. And
What do you
I
remember?
don't normally gnaw at my nails, but last night I did.
It's okay. I'm sure there are plenty of people who do that. I wouldn't know any. No, I do that.
You do, you know.
Yeah, it's not as bad as you, I'm sure, but I do it.
Yeah, just like they were too long.
Do you remember what you sang? Like what songs you sang?
Puerto Rico.
No way.
Yeah. Now I would be like literally canceled for.
Yeah, it's a good thing
singing
you
that.
stopped right there.
You ugly island. Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
funny.
I know. Sorry.
Wow.
I'm apologizing for that now, but yeah.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
And so then you wrap up your year at Disney, and then where do you go? Do you go back home? Did you go to New York?
Well, you think I would, right?
Right.
I went to college for theater. You would think the natural next step is to come to New York because that's kind of where it happens. But of course, I didn't do that, LB. Why would I do that? No, because Barb Epstein, who became a dear friend, lived in California.
Right.
And she said, hey, I will have work for you out here if you come out here.
Yeah.
And so that's where I went.
To LA.
Yeah. And she had a lot of, she still worked for Disney, and she also worked for, at those time, there were a lot of corporate like gigs, industrials that you would do where like I went to Hawaii. I went to Europe twice with Disney on what were called industrials.
Oh my gosh.
You got paid. A lot of times they were
To do
original
what?
shows.
To do
Yeah, you did an original
a cabaret
show.
type show or like
No. You did a themed show. With Disney, it was always themed. Usually it was to promote a film.
Oh wow.
And so that they would write a show that was mostly just,
Wow.
about Mickey, Donald, Goofy, and the gang.
What better show?
And I went to Europe twice. I mean,
But so how long were you in LA for after that? You
6
moved to
years.
LA, like you
Yeah.
lived in LA.
Yeah.
6 years you were in LA?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I've never even been. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. No, I've never been to LA.
Oh my gosh, you should
Not the
go.
best time to go right now.
No.
But
they're
I'll catch it.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do want to. I've wanted to go forever, just to go on the Warner Bros. Studio tour. Like I literally, I just want to see the Walk of Fame. Like,
Oh, yeah.
so we were at LA. You were in LA, and what did you do? What did you do in LA? Like, what did you do for work in LA?
Yeah, the kind of work out there is different than, you do theater and you're in rehearsal 10 to 6 and then you're working at night and there's a kind of a sense of community to that. Right. And the work is just more consistent in a way because you rehearse for 4 weeks and your run will be, whatever, 6 weeks or 4 weeks. But in LA, it's you audition for, let's say, episodic television. I ended up doing a bunch of episodic television while I was out there. And
Golden Girls. She was on an episode of Golden Girls.
That's how old I am. Yep. I did do some classic 80s television. I was really lucky.
You did Quantum Leap, I remember you telling me.
Quantum Leap.
Yes. Yeah. Epic.
So LA Law. I did LA Law. You don't even know these series now. But but you could make as much money in a week as you would make like for an entire run. Yeah. Right. So that was the hard part.
It kind of still is that way.
Yeah. But that was the hard part about it. It's like, how do I feel creative in the midst of when I'm not working out there?
Did you have like a day job?
I had my day job was, no, really, I was really lucky. My day job was singing in a gay bar.
No way.
Yeah.
What was the gay bar?
I
Shout
had
'em out.
kind of a residency, the Rose Tattoo on Robertson. I don't even know if it's still there. Loved that bar. I loved it.
Really?
It was so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would do like my dear
You do all your Disney material.
No, my dear friend John Kavanaugh, who I lived with, and my ex-husband, but we weren't married at the time, but boyfriend, the three of us lived together for years. First in an apartment, and then Kevin and I bought a house, and John lived with us.
Wow.
So he's just an inspired composer and arranger. He writes for all the Disney shows now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you would know.
Like the junior you're saying? Or?
Yeah, I'm going to be terrible in the name of it, but there's a Disney this is bad. You should edit this part.
There's a Disney show that what?
There's a Disney show that I think there's a Latin heroine, the young girl.
Elena of Avalor.
He writes the music for that.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. We were just talking about that show. That's so funny.
Yeah.
My sister used to watch that show.
Yeah.
It was on Disney Junior. That's so funny. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
anyway, so we would create all these arrangements.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I have some unbelievable and some original music of his, and we would sing there.
That's awesome.
At the Rose Tattoo.
And so did you get the work with an agent? Did you have an agent?
My agent eventually was my dear friend I went to college with. He was in what I think would have been an arts admin program at University of Cincinnati in a grad capacity, and we became fast friends there. Yeah. And then when I moved to California, he was there working in the mail room at William Morris.
That's awesome. That's
and
so awesome.
So he kind of worked his way up. Or he was at yes, and then he went to Triad, which was a smaller agency, and then he was someone's assistant, and he was like, I can kind of like submit you like on the sly, and so that's how it started.
And so he was essentially your agent, or
yes,
yeah,
yes, and then he worked his way up, and then he was like a full-fledged
and got you all this work in LA too.
Yeah,
that's
all
awesome.
of it. Yeah.
So then what made you leave LA?
I kept getting shows that took me to New York.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. Then finally, my first Broadway show started at the Pasadena Playhouse.
No way.
Yeah, it was called Mail.
Mail.
M-A-I-L. Mm-hmm. Michael Rupert, Jerry Coker.
And okay, so I'll tell the story. The reason what I know about Mail. Not much.
I'm just like, I don't even think you were born.
No, but I don't know much about Mail. It's kind of hard to find things on Mail too. I'll tell you honestly.
I know, but I just took the score back from my office yesterday.
Oh, really?
I know, so I have
funny.
it, or whatever music
who wrote
I
it?
had. Michael Rupert.
Oh, right.
And Jerry Coker. Yeah.
So I was on the train. We were doing the Lifetime Achievement for you this summer, and we were doing the videos for it, and we were doing rehearsals and whatnot. And I'm getting on the train coming back from Pearl Studios, and I look, and sitting right next to me I'm like, is that Brian Stokes Mitchell? And but I'm like having a moment because I'm like, it's just in my head, right? It's like it's not actually Brian Stokes Mitchell. It's just someone who really looks like Brian Stokes Mitchell, but he's in a suit. He's like decked out, and we're on the 3 train. And I'm like, I don't know if I should. Maybe I should. I don't know if it's Brian. And then he's holding a paper and he's reading a paper, and on the paper it says, "Hi, my name is Brian Stokes Mitchell." And I was like, it is
That's
Brian
probably
Stokes
a good clue.
I was like, yeah. I was like, it is Brian Stokes Mitchell. So I start chatting with him, and I was just like, shoot my shot. Do you know Michele Pawk? And he was like, yeah. He was like, we made our debuts together in Mail.
I mean, we were, that group was very tight. It was an awesome group of people.
Yeah.
We were quite close.
Is that how you got your equity card?
No, I got my equity card the year after I left Disney at Pittsburgh Civic Light Opera.
Oh, cool. Oh, wow.
Which was like amazing because I was from there.
I was going to say.
And so I left Florida and then,
what show did you do?
Amazing. And in those days, I don't think they do it quite this way anymore. I mean, maybe they do. I just don't know. But you were in rehearsal all day long for some massive, epic musical like Anything Goes,
Right.
Fiddler on the Roof.
Right.
What else did we do? Can. You know, and you rehearsed those shows all day long, and then you performed a different one at night. And all day long, you performed a different one at night. But it was a great opera.
So it was like summer stock.
It was summer stock.
Yeah.
I was in the corps.
And you got your equity card doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I got nice little opportunities. I was one of the angels in
And was it for summer? Was it like
Anything
a summer
Goes.
season?
Hello, Dolly. We did Hello, Dolly, too.
Oh, wow.
I mean, these were massive musicals. It's not like we were doing, Tick, Tick, Boom with 6 people.
Yeah, right.
They were huge musicals. I don't know how we did it, but we did.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you learn more doing that than you will ever learn.
But back then, you had to develop your week. Like you developed all your weeks and all that other stuff. That doing that, is that how you got it? The
What do you
card.
mean
Like
weeks?
it was like you had to develop a certain amount of weeks to get into equity. And
This was way
even
before that.
So then, how did you get in? What was the process?
That was a union house, and
That's it.
yeah,
Wow.
you took your card.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I think it was still the same then as it is now. Like you could Taft-Hartley one time.
Sure.
But I wanted my card.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I wanted it.
Right.
So yeah.
So you did that was huge, Mail. In terms of like for you, right? I mean, like
Yeah, it was like got me
It's a
to
Broadway
New
debut,
York.
like-
It was amazing.
What theater was it in?
The
Do you
Music Box.
Oh, nice.
The
Nice.
greatest,
Yeah.
Great. John worked in there too.
Mm.
It's just a perfect,
Yeah.
intimate
Yeah.
house. Really great.
And so, you book Mail. Tell me about Mail because I actually cannot find enough about Mail.
Yeah, I really wish we would have recorded it. And in those days, you know, everybody's musical got recorded. So I'm a little sad that there's no record of it
Right.
because, you know, maybe Michael Rupert has something. Maybe he does. He's so sweet. Yeah, the whole play was about, it starts with the protagonist, who was also Michael. He starred in it.
Oh, wow.
He wrote it and starred in it, yeah.
Wow.
And he has a nervous breakdown at the beginning of the play, right? And he freaks out, and he sings this song, and he slams the door and he leaves. And then fast forward, the next scene is 3 months later, and he's coming back from, like, you know, getting himself together, and, you know, and he's got bags of mail. And he, like, slings them over his shoulder, and he comes into the apartment, and he dumps the mail out. And one at a time, as he starts to open his letters, everything from his literary agent, his best friend, Brian Stokes Mitchell, you know what I mean? We come to life. And I was in the ensemble. There were 5 of us.
Wow.
Mary Bon Davis, oh my God, Alan Maroka, right? Who? Bobby, oh, right. And anyway, we were all the male.
Wow.
You know,
awesome.
I
That's
was
so
the
funny.
power. Yeah, you gotta turn off the juice and watch it. Yeah, right. And it was about, we're gonna turn your power off. And it was me and Mary Bond and
How long did Mail last?
And Hickey, right? What's her face? Oh yeah, it was short lived.
Sure.
That was my first. That was my first experience with your closing notice goes up on a Tuesday.
Right.
And then in this case, they took it down on Sunday because we'd done enough box office to live another week, or somebody with deep pockets put some money into it. Yeah. And that happened in my memory. I'm sure there would be some people who will remember this different, but it felt like weeks that went on, that Tuesday the notice went up and Sunday it came down. And there were so many great things about that show too. Yeah. It was Grover Dale choreography it was very inventive. The set, like, we came up through the couch. The refrigerator.
That's awesome.
He opened the refrigerator door, and we busted. It was like super
so
fun.
Cool. That is. Really
it was
cool.
really creative. Yeah.
So here's this thing that I've always wondered is, like, you book Broadway, and I feel like for a lot of people, especially like my age, you think to yourself, you're like, oh, Broadway is the thing, right? And once I book Broadway, all my problems are solved because I booked Broadway.
Sure, and I'm just gonna go from one Broadway show to the next.
Yeah, right. Well, that too. And I think, but I think ideally in your head, you're thinking like, oh, well, this is the dream is Broadway, and it's like, well, that's actually a pretty attainable dream. Okay, so you realize that you book Broadway, and then your Broadway show closes in oftentimes too short. Most Broadway shows are short-lived. And then what? You know what I mean? Like,
in my case, you pack up your life and you go back to LA.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, my life was all back there.
Right.
And so I did.
Yeah.
I was subletting Carl Anderson's apartment. Carl Anderson, the original, Judas.
Oh,
when you listen to I was in his apartment. Now Karate Kid. Kung Fu. What are you doing? Oh, Kung Fu. Yeah. Oh, right. That was the song. But man, that man could sing. Anyway, I had sublet at his apartment in New York. Beautiful. I mean, spectacular apartment because a friend knew from LA. Anyway, so then I went back to LA.
This is your first time living in New York too, right? I mean, like, on your own, living in New York. Where were you living? Where was the apartment?
It was awesome. I mean, it was like 70 something and off of Central Park West. It was beautiful, like 74. No, amazing. It was an incredible. In New York, I mean, until our last apartment, I don't think I lived in a nicer apartment. It was most of the time I was in like a room the size of a bathroom. Sure.
So then how long did you go back to you went back to LA and auditioned and booked more TV and stuff like that?
Yeah.
How long were you there for that until you came back to New York?
I think in between that, I worked at the Old Globe once, and.
But also, if you're auditioning for shows in New York from LA, like, are you taping?
No.
Yeah.
For the bigger things, well, Mail started there. So my next big audition was for Crazy for You, and that's the next show that brought me back. To New York, and then that was
the next show you did was Crazy for You, after Mail.
My next Broadway show.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I realized that at all.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Maybe 3 years later, something like that. Wow. 3 years later. Wow.
And so you came back for the audition too?
Right? Yeah. I think I had an initial call in LA. That's my memory, and then they wanted to call me back in New York. And so I had to fly myself across the country, and I go to the callback, and danced all day long, and then I go back to LA, and I had been hired as one of the Pink Girls, one of the dancers in the thing, and I had to kind of decide whether at that time in my life whether that's what I wanted to do. Super difficult decision, but ended up being fortuitous, but I passed on the show.
No way.
I passed on the show because for me at that time in my life, I wanted to make a next step out of the core, and I thought the only way to do that was to not take a job in the core.
Wow. And this was Crazy for You going to Broadway, or was it like an out of town tryout?
No, it was Broadway. We did go out of town first.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, let me back up. So I pass.
Yeah.
Difficult. Like a month or two or some months go by, and I get another call, and they want me to fly myself back to New York because the incredible actress who had been offered the part of Irene was on the road doing a musical, and the producers wouldn't let her out of her contract to do it.
Oh.
And so, I mean, and that stuff happens all the time. I mean, everybody talks about it.
Yeah.
But that changed my life.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I was like, I had no money. Right. So I was like, would you consider flying me to New York? And they were like, yeah, no. And so I flew myself across country again. And I think auditioned. And
this is just to go in for it again.
To go in. And in those days, you audition on I was on the Schubert stage. And you'd audition on a Broadway stage.
That's cool.
That was quite common.
That's really cool.
Which is actually, I think, they should do it more often. Yeah. Just to see how people can fill a space. Right. And you can tell a lot about someone's energy. So I literally think it was maybe a Wednesday or Thursday in a week. Mm-hmm. I found out immediately that they wanted me for it. Mm-hmm. And then I flew home and they said, yeah, rehearsals start Monday. So I had to pack up my life, right, and then relocated.
That's so crazy.
And I lived with my friend, because it was all so fast. My friend Billy Miller, the artist, lived in the East Village, and I and Dave T. These were all people I went to college with, and he was out on the road doing something, and so I lived in.
Wow.
I lived in that apartment. I was so lucky to have a place to be.
Oh, that's so cool. That's awesome.
I was married at that time, and Kevin stayed. He would have stayed in L.A. because he had a business at a company out there.
And so, but then subsequently, you live in New York, like crazy for you, and then you're in New York.
Well, and then I moved my life, to New York. Yeah, awesome. I figured, okay, this is a sign, maybe. Sure. That maybe you should be there because people get you there in a way that I didn't feel like people really got me in LA. I don't, Yeah. I mean, and I'm not saying this for you to say anything, but I'm not pretty enough. I'm not, it was not the town for me.
Sure.
Right.
I think a lot of people say that about LA. Some people say that about New York. I mean, it's just like.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I felt like, New York got me in a way a little more than LA did.
But Crazy for You was not short-lived. Was it?
Crazy for You was not short-lived.
Right.
No, I stayed for 2 years in that longest run I've ever done. And I think it ran for 4 or 5 because we were doing Hello Again and it was still running, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, an incredible show.
And that must have had a huge effect though on your career too, though, right? Like, was it easier to?
It really. I mean that show changed my life.
Yeah.
It got me to New York. It reinforced that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There in a community that I felt supported and I just loved everything about it. Yeah. In the energy and working in that city was
that's awesome.
Amazing. It was a gift. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a quick little pivot because we talk about, and it came to my brain about like talking about short-lived shows and talking about how all these Broadway shows are short-lived and I think that especially lately that's been a big topic of conversation in terms of like current state of the industry, and we talk about like the situation that just happened with Swept Away and Tammy Faye, where like these shows really were barely got any time to breathe before they were just the rug was pulled from under them. And I guess this is like a general silly question, but talking about like current state of the industry, talking about where you see Broadway now comparing to then in terms of a bunch of things, in terms of the commercial stuff, like those shows closing, but also in terms of like the jukebox stuff, the movie, the musicals being from movies and all this other stuff. I think that where
you
see
just
it.
want to know?
I guess like where you see the current state of the industry and where you see Broadway moving. I think that a lot of people have negative things. There are a lot of positive things. I think that in a certain way there's an ebb and flow to it, but
I don't. I'm not sure that the current model is sustainable.
Sure.
And that's just like the sort of producing model, because, and a lot of it has to do with the various unions involved, right? And
Sure.
all of us want to make a living wage, in which we all deserve to make, and so then the cost of everything is escalated, right? And then that gets handed down literally to the ticket buyers, right? I mean, last week was a great example. John and I wanted to go into the city and see something, and I was like, well, let me look on TDF. Well, there was nothing on TDF, and which is great. And so I thought, well, let's just get on the website and look. I couldn't find a ticket for, and they were plays, most of what I wanted to see, for under $200 a seat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know this space is small, and that's a lot of money, and so that's unsustainable.
And also houses
for
are
me.
It's not like the houses are full and they're like, so.
Well, they're not discounting their tickets, and maybe they're doing it in a place that I didn't research in this particular day.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how that's gonna change, because I mean, I think everybody because I think people when I was coming up were like, the business has changed, the business is totally, you know what I mean? And I was like, I don't know, this is all I know, right? And so now I'm the old person, and I'm like, the business has changed.
Yeah, sure.
Right? But it's all you know. It is what it is. But I do think it's harder. I do think the sort of glut of talent, for lack of a better word, and I think a lot of that had to do with the onslaught of the competitive shows on television, where everybody watches them, and it looks and or Glee, right? And everybody thinks, oh, this is so fun, this is so easy, right? And there's a flood of people that come, and well, and you have told me, right, showing up at these auditions and then waiting for 8 hours to be seen.
Sure.
I didn't wait for 8 hours to be seen. I waited for 4 sometimes, or 5.
Yeah.
I didn't wait for 8 or not get seen. That just didn't happen back in the day.
That's really interesting, because I would say that not getting seen is actually a huge normality.
Right.
I think that in a way it's like a double-edged sword, because you have like shows that you want shows to be successful, and you want this wide variety on Broadway, but for shows to be successful, there has to be a reason for people to go, because people aren't going if there's not some sort of IP attached to it. That's kind of just what it is.
Yeah.
And so there might be room. But you're seeing it all across the board. It's the reboot television. It's sequels. There's constant sequels or requels or thirds, fourths, nines. Like there's so many of those too. I think it's just like this trust that people will come and see the thing.
Crazy for You is a great example, right? And I'll never forget, like, first day of rehearsal, Roger Horschow, who told this story. And he said he was from Texas, and he was the kindest, gentlest man. He was the producer, right? And in those days, you didn't have 18 people above the title. We had 2, right? And for that time, it was a very big, expensive musical. And he stood up at first day rehearsal, and he was like, I just want to tell you, I grew up in Cincinnati, and I remember when I was a child, and we had a piano in our house, and one day, my mother had George Gershwin came over to our house, and he sat at that piano and he played, and he said, I have always been in love with the Gershwin canon, and he said, I always wanted to produce a musical using that music. And that's how that play started. And he said, so and I'm sitting there thinking, literally, I just moved my entire life across the country. You have got to be kidding me. We're like doing this piece. And it ended up being the most magical experience. And it's a real lesson that when the people at the top of a process, producers, usually writers, creative team, are doing it for the right reasons, the love just trickles down and it trickles down and that's what fills the room, and the process becomes so collaborative and joyous, and that's what that was.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, I mean, we've all been in rooms like where at the top it's tense and you could tell it's already, and you're like, oh my God, I'm never gonna make it through this. I'm gonna.
Yeah. You had said this thing, I remember when we were in school, it was like King Kong had just come on Broadway, and it was such a big thing, and then that review came out that was so scathing and so, just like, I remember that being a big trending thing, and you had said this thing that was along the lines of like, there's like something for everyone, and so King Kong, no matter how you felt about it being on Broadway, is not emblematic of Broadway. And I think that for me, at least, that changed my perspective in terms of like when I look at it now, I'm like, as long as there's space for it all, there's space for the original stuff, and there's space for the stuff that's based on movies, and there's space for the jukebox stuff too. And if we get audiences in those houses and it works, and people really put their all into, I mean, really, you're talking about creative teams working on these shows, which they all really do.
Yep.
Because if they don't, it shows, right? Then there's a space. Then there's kind of a space for it all, and it doesn't have to do with any degradation of the industry. It's more of like, you know what? Right now, this is the place for the Britney Spears thing, and there's audiences that are interested in that, and they want to see it, so they'll go. Or right now, people want to see Death Becomes Her on a stage, and they want to take, and that's great, and that's what it is, and it's a style, and it is, so.
Well, to be really honest, I mean, I think about that. My husband and I put us in this category. We're journeymen. We've been really lucky to have made a living in this business, right? And I think about all of the hundreds of thousands of actors across New York who the jobs. So when I get it, it's always a little upsetting to me when people want to get very opinionated and negative about a particular show. I'm like, these are livelihoods, and these are people who have families at home, and let's not root for its demise. Let's it is it's personal. It is personal. Quite frankly.
I think that it's so easy to do that when you're out of it. Right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, like, I think seeing it and seeing friends who work on these shows, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't really care about how I felt about the content of the show. My friend just lost a job, right? I mean, that's like a thing, right?
Yeah, and, it's real. Oh no, now the health insurance that you thought you were going to have, you don't have now. Right. Yeah. And not just for you, perhaps also for your family. Right. I mean, and that's real. You know what I mean? That we have I have a lot of empathy for that. Yeah. So it does make me think, and I can go see things and say that wasn't for me. Right. Or I didn't get it. Yeah. Or whatever. Right. But not.
But and either way, it's keeping that opinion, within here. It's not going on social media and blasting it.
I don't do social media anymore.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So in terms of when you talk about Crazy for You, because I think that in a way, theater is one of the few mediums right now where reviews still matter in like a big way. Like those things, even social media reviews still affect ticket sales. It's still...
Yeah, they do and they don't. Yeah. I'm going to take Heart of Rock and Roll as a great example. Right? You guys got great press for that. Yeah, but this to great, to good, right?
Yeah. Swept Away did too.
Swept Away, totally another example. Yeah. Like how is it? So it doesn't matter. Yeah.
You would find, in theory, you would think that the negative reviews have a
bigger impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like yes, it's hard to climb out of that.
Yeah.
But on the a good review doesn't necessarily ensure that your show is going to run. Right. And a lot of it's different, and that's also the way in our lifetime how the business has changed, the way you market a show. I mean, when we started our careers, the only way you knew what was going on was because you had a subscription to the New York Times, and there was a theater directory in it, and it told you what was running and what wasn't.
Right.
So even if you lived across the country and you wanted to plan a trip to New York, you had to go by the Times.
Yes, right. Did the reviews matter more in terms of like Crazy for You, in terms of the?
Oh yeah, I feel like they did.
Yeah.
You either rode or died.
Based on
a lot of times, and
Wow.
and the Times and the Post, the Times.
The Times, right?
It was It was.
Well,
big.
but in a way, I mean, the Times Critics Pick is still a really big, trophy. It's still like it's still a big thing. It still holds a lot. I remember you talking about, in terms of Seuss, that was a big pivot when you talk about like the chat rooms and
and that was the first time in my career, so that was 2000, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And really, I mean, those Reddit boards, that was like a reduced version of, Instagram now or TikTok or any of that.
I had no, and I wasn't participating in any of it, so I didn't really even understand it. I just had a baby, so my life was like, I was just trying to stay awake. Right. I didn't, it was really, really hard for me to understand how people would try to dog you down out of town. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened when we were in Boston. We were like, oh, the word is bad. I was like, what? First of all, we haven't even started.
Right.
We're working on it. Being out of town used to be a safer space.
Right.
Not so much anymore. I don't know what's safe anymore, I guess.
Yeah, sure. I think there's still maybe some levity to it, certainly more than being on Broadway, but it still has a lot of weight. And I think that like TikTok now, like Instagram, all that, they really could make or break your show in a big way.
Well, I feel like that's how marketing has changed too. I
Yeah.
feel like that's the way people are
Viral sounds
reaching audiences.
I want to ask you about award stuff too, and how that affects the same thing, because Michele Pawk is a Tony winner, and I think that it's what's worth talking about is like, at least right now, because I like study a lot of this award stuff, and you look at campaigns is such a big part of winning that award, and maybe not as much with theater awards, but there's still a lot of campaigning that you do. There's still a lot of interviews that you do. There's still a lot of, and I think that particularly in that year with Hollywood Arms and everything, like what was the buzz around that show? What was the?
There was no buzz.
There was no buzz.
It had been closed 6 months.
Right.
We closed. Yeah.
But were you doing Tony stuff? Were you doing like
No.
Tony's press stuff? Really?
I was lucky any of the Tony voters had seen it. I was in Chicago when the nominations came out, working on Bounce
Oh wow.
at the Goodman. I mean, and ironically, in the best supporting actress category,
Yeah.
all 5 of our shows had closed.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
not one of us had a running show at that time.
Right.
So, yeah.
And what about generally then, like with shows that you've been in that did have that like Tony's buzz, that were running and pushing toward, especially those shows that open in the spring, last minute, right before the cutoff. You see it all the time where it's like the day before the cutoff, a show will open, and then all of a sudden they're at the luncheons and they're at all the, all these interviews and GMA, Today's Show, all that stuff where it's like, it's a push to make sure that there's like a brand behind the show to push it for the.
I think that's relatively
New?
in the last 10 years,
Wow.
maybe.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
It didn't really happen before. I mean, we did interviews and you did stuff, but there wasn't the push in the way.
Right.
It either happened or it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you absolutely tried to get your show on, Cabaret, we did David Letterman. I mean, you tried to get
on those mainstream.
Yeah, because you wanted people to come and see it.
Right.
Yeah, Seussical, we were on Rosie had a Rosie O'Donnell
Rosie
had
O'Donnell show, yeah.
Yeah, and she would have us on, so that trying to promote.
Well, she was also in it.
Eventually.
Eventually.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because because I think about how did the awards affect then ticket sales? That was now it's still it holds a lot of weight still. I mean I think the Tonys is still arguably the biggest platform for all of those shows still, even though the viewership decree whatever, but like I think it's still like mainstream. Hey, you want to come to New York? Here it is. This is what you have to see.
Well, it is and it isn't. Like, then why did Water for Elephants close, right?
Sure.
It was nominated. It wasn't nominated
It
for
was.
Best Musical?
Best Musical, yeah.
And score and all the rest, and some of the act. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so
Did those hold more weight then? Did the Tonys hold more weight, do you think?
It's always a nice marketing ploy to be able to
or
say.
winning one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, yes. You know, every time Crazy for You will ever be done, Tony Award winning Crazy for You,
Right.
you know.
Right.
You know, yeah. I mean, even myself, you know, I get the little thing before my name now.
What?
Tony Award winner Michele Pawk.
Well, okay, so then
Tony Award nominee John Donne. I mean, it's
Right,
just
that's
like
like
a
the
thing
thing.
now.
Did it-
No, which is, you know, an honor. It's a very
right, of course. But did you after you win the Tony, did that change your career in a way that you felt was substantial?
I lost my health insurance after I won the
Oh
Tony. So let's be real.
Yeah.
I had no health insurance after Bounce finished. I mean, it was
Wow.
like, wow, this is wow.
So
Okay.
you didn't see doors open, more opportunities come, nothing
No,
like that?
I got into a few more rooms like for film.
Oh, okay.
I had a couple more opportunities.
Yeah.
Like that, and in that arena, in a different arena.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, it's actually really interesting because you see, like, I just feel like now you see these Tony winners, Oscar winners. I mean, obviously Oscar, but like you see them go from like, oh, all of a sudden they won their first, and and their career blows up, and it becomes this huge sensational thing. And you're like, well, they're not going to be in the show much longer because now,
yeah.
you know what I mean? They're not going to be on Broadway at all, probably much longer because
Yeah.
they're going to go do.
There's also so much more content now.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the opportunities are, I think,
Yeah.
more readily available like,
Sure.
to a lot of people coming up and out, which
Even
is
in
like
the campaign
which is a
stuff
great
of it.
which is a great thing.
Because you listen to these, I listen to a lot of awards podcasts and a lot of stuff like that. And every little thing is like a little trick, right? It's like Paul Giamatti eating in an In-N-Out Burger. He went, so it's like this story. Last year, he goes to In-N-Out Burger after Golden Globes in his tuxedo. And someone took a picture of it. It went viral. Oh my gosh, he's just like us. He went to a In-N-Out Burger in his tux after Golden Globes. The picture went viral, and it was a great thing for his campaign moving forward to the Oscars. That picture supposedly was staged too because it's a part of the campaign. It's all part of the thing.
Oh, that's hilarious.
You know what I mean? And it helped him big time. And apparently it's a strategy. It's like
Wow.
and that became like a big viral thing. And he was bumped up a couple. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. He was asked about it in interviews, things like that. So
hilarious.
it's interesting the way that, those narratives are,
I guess you would have to hire that team
Publicist.
to do that.
Yeah, and do all that
Which
stuff. Yeah,
I just
sure.
never did.
Yeah. Well, in a way, that's kind of almost more beautiful because it's like unintentional and it's, it was this like.
Well, and to be really honest, I mean, they're expensive.
Yeah.
And when you don't have health insurance,
Yeah,
I don't
right.
think my priority is not hiring a publicist.
Yeah.
My priority was like trying to figure out
Yeah.
how we were going to scrap it together.
Yeah.
So.
Can you talk about, I'm thinking now about the thing that most interests you about what you do now. In terms of like, what would you find after doing all these Broadway shows, doing all this, like what would you find is the thing that is most interesting to you about it now? Because we've talked enough business stuff.
Yeah, I think, I mean, and in some ways, this answer hasn't changed for me. Although the older I get, I think the more I actually really believe it. I think I said it before, but now I think it's a little more true.
Yeah.
Is that, all of us, right? We're all on our own journey. I can't compare to anybody else. I'm on my own kind of path. Creatively, artistically, in all sorts of ways. And I think about at this time in my life, right? Do I want to be? I want to be challenged. I tend to like to do stuff that is scary to me, and because I know I'm going to grow. Mm-hmm. I'm not necessarily going to succeed, but I'm going to grow, and I think about that journey more now, and I think I believe that more now than I did earlier, because then it was about a career path, and I have to turn that role down if I want to be seen like this, and and I want to do this but not this, and projects that you take and don't take, mm-hmm. But now it's really about, first of all, first and foremost, am I gonna like the people in the room?
Yeah.
Because I just am too old to like be in a room full of assholes. Yeah, that's just honest. And am I going to be challenged? Yeah. Is it going to be joyful and collaborative and creative? And am I going to move forward in my own whatever? Mm-hmm. So I think I've said that for the last maybe 12 years or so, but I think now I really believe it.
Well, that's a perfect segue to Just in Time. You're doing Just in Time.
Right.
I don't know when I'm going to release this thing, but I imagine that it'll be right around that time. And
just in time.
It'll be just in time. And what will you? They're cracking out. You really like that one. What is exciting you about this now? What is exciting you about Just in Time? What's interesting you about it?
Well, Jonathan Groff. Mm-hmm. Is delicious.
He's pretty interesting.
He's delicious. I have worked with him before, and
on what?
We did a Craig. We did a Craig Lucas play, a new Craig Lucas play at Playwrights Horizons called "Prayer for My Enemy," and it was like incredible and complicated and hard, and he played my child in that, one of my kids, and I really sort of feel like anybody who's played my child I'm actually really still really close with.
And they're bound to be successful too. They're really successful.
Well, they were probably all way more successful than me even back then, but
was this was post Spring Awakening?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. But I think pre-Glee. Sure. Yeah, he was still pretty young. And we've just stayed in touch all these years. And then John and I went to go see him in Merrily, and when we're hanging out, backstage, just catching up a little bit. And he made a big plea. He's like, "Pawk, I got this piece, and I really want you to be my mother." And so, it's hard. He's hard to say no to, just in general. Sure. And then I get in the room, and it's Alex Timbers and Warren Light, and it just is like delicious.
Yeah.
And then you know this, but I'll share this. I'm on my own like little personal journey with singing again, and I have some healing to do on that level, and I shared all that too with Jonathan and the musical director Andrew Resnick. Who couldn't be any sweeter, and to feel like I was going to enter into that arena again with people that were so supportive of where I was, or where I am right now.
Yeah.
So that's another big reason.
That is exciting.
Yes.
Awesome. I don't think I've ever told you this story, or if I did, it was a long time ago. So this is 2 years ago, and this was the strike. SAG's on strike, and it's the peak summer in Times Square, and there was the big Times Square strike. At Bryan Cranston's there, and they're doing all the speeches and all the stuff, and Warren Light is there. And so I came up to him because I'm a big Law and Order person, big Law and Order. Been watching Law and Order since before I was born. And my sister was on Law and Order too. My sister was Olivia's niece on Law and Order. And so I start chatting with him about that and whatnot. And I tell him about you and about Sideman because the scene, and we do scene from
one of
that show in
greatest
class.
Greatest plays.
Yeah. And And so I'm chatting with him about it, and he goes, "Oh, Michele Pawk." Oh, and we start, and oh gosh, what's his name? I think Michael Emerson, who's in Lost. He was in Lost.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He was in,
Yeah, great actor.
Evil. He's insane. He's insane.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was upset. And he was there, and the woman who I'm blanking on her name, but she's Elsbeth. She's the lead of Elsbeth.
They're married, Michael and her. That's his
know
wife.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't know that. Well, yeah. So she was there, and we're chatting about you, and he was like, "You know what? I'm gonna reach out to Michele Pawk. I'm writing something, and I really feel like she'd be really good for it." And I was like, oh, great. And then when I saw his name,
So are you telling me you got me this
got
job?
Well, I didn't say it. You did, but
No, because he did tell me when we started working. He was like, I had you in my mind. I could hear your voice when I was writing this thing.
That's really funny.
So this is the piece.
But I did tell. I was talking, and he was like, I want to reach out to her because I'm writing this thing, and I had no idea what it was. And then when I saw his name, I was like, oh my god! I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, I spoke to him about this in Times Square.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So you're welcome.
Thank you. Officially on tape.
Right. Have you been working with her, with Emily, on the workshops of Just in Time?
Yes, she's been involved. I think as long as I've been involved. A couple of readings.
She's incredible.
Incredible.
I'm really excited for this show.
I
And
am
Circle in the
too.
Square is like Circle in the
and
Square.
it's
like one of my
great,
favorite
and
theaters.
it's Derek McLean who's designing the set, and Kathy Zuber is doing the costumes. I saying this because I just looked at my peeked in my costumes. But the design of it's like gonna be awesome. So because it's a weird like hybrid, because you're in a nightclub.
Mm-hmm.
And they're setting it in a nightclub, but it's also a theater piece, and so
gosh, I can't. I
like
love,
trying to get
I
that,
love
trying to
like
figure
that.
that out.
I
Bands
love
on
Alex
stage.
Timbers. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah. Well, I've told you about my love for Here Lies Love. I thought that was like one of my.
Me too.
I saw it 3 times. I thought
Me
it was
too.
like,
And I wanted to go back and take him, and then Wicked was happening. We
yeah. Well, oh
sucked
gosh, I
into
thought that
that.
was. Yeah. And I've told him that too. I've told Alex that too. I was like, gosh, I think Here Lies Love is just.
I love it.
Really.
Let me just say to you, I love that you do that.
Oh yeah.
That you don't feel shy about, and I know you well enough to know you're not going to be slimy and disingenuous and make it all about you. But I love that you are willing to just walk up to these people and say, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, yada, yada, yada. And people should do that. Ask for what you want.
I think that
make a connection with someone.
I think it was when I realized that like people are okay with that I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it because there's this,
who doesn't like to be told that you like them?
Well, I don't know. You just don't want to be in your face about something. You don't want to, and you don't want to sing somebody's laurels too much, right? You don't want to like in their face, but I'm like, oh, they actually want to talk about how much I like them.
They do.
Yeah, especially if like it's not about going up to someone and just like I said, like in their face about it, but asking them something. Because there are times where I'll watch something like Here Lies Love and I'll be like, this was, oh my gosh, I like love everything about this. That's so interesting. Well, I wonder why that is there. And that was intentional, and so I want to ask you this question. And so that's what I would be like, hey, that moment in Here Lies, and you guys had the audience here and you sent me on this arc. And so I'm telling you, and yes, it was intentional.
Right.
Like, stuff like that. Like
he
that is
wants
something.
to. I mean, who doesn't want to be in a room or in a conversation with someone who is really not just a fan, but a smart fan?
Sure.
Like who's invested in your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants that.
Yeah. But it's also seeing things that like excite you. Like when I see and that was that's what I'm interested in, this, like the idea of the nightclub thing and all, and it's interesting and innovative, and I really trust you, and I really trust Jonathan Groff, and I really trust Emily. These are people that I'm like, oh, this is shaping up to be something really, really cool, right? Like
I think so.
At the very least.
Yeah, I
really,
think
really
so.
Interesting and cool.
Like, did you see the promotional video that he's done? Yeah, right? That's Jonathan. He rides his bike everywhere around town, right? And so, he comes up on his bike, and the idea of that, how he morphs into, that's the way into this piece, right?
Yeah, and
excited. With this incredible score and these incredible arrangements, and then you're like,
Dream Lover. I was my song. Dream Lover was like my 60s doo-wop song that I would do. Yeah. That was in my book. Yeah.
Love it.
Love that song. Okay, I have this little surprise. You ready?
Okay.
So, I wanted to come up with some funny, cool segment to
It's
do.
getting darker and darker outside.
Yeah.
Well-
It's like not even 2:00.
I know, right?
So I think have you ever played with AI? Have you ever played with ChatGPT?
Have I? Are you kidding me right now?
you-
I, who have no social media, I have a Google Docs. That's pretty much as technical as I
Google
go.
Docs is big though. I didn't discover Google Docs till college.
I've kind of mastered those. But
Well, you should know that ChatGPT knows a lot about you. Okay. An AI knows a lot about you. So here's what this segment is called.
oh my God, is it going to be true or false? Right?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Okay.
But this segment is called AI Want to Be Like You. You like that? That's pretty good, right?
AI. I want to be like you.
So what I asked AI to do is to write me a musical for you. Okay, I asked AI to write a plot synopsis for a musical starring Michele Pawk, something that you would do, and then to write a scene for us to perform from this musical. Okay, so I'll tell you what it's called. The musical all I wrote was, can you give me a short plot synopsis for this musical starring Michele Pawk? And they said the show is called Broadway Backwards and Bingo. Okay. That's
Bingo.
That's what the musical is called. Okay.
Broadway backwards. Oh, this is great.
A little synopsis. Maddie Beaumont, that's you.
Okay.
A larger-than-life former Broadway hopeful has spent years running the Lawn Chair Players, a quirky community theater troupe in the small town of Wickersville.
This is my life. This isn't a musical.
Okay.
I'm living this, right?
Despite
the lawn
her
chair
love-
players. I'm
and
gonna
I
use
want you to
that.
be like, this was one shot. Like it wasn't like, okay, let me try to craft it. No, I just plugged it in. This is what we got.
Okay.
Despite her love for the stage and her troupe, Maddie dreams at one last shot at stardom.
Oh, yeah.
This year, she set her sights on directing an ambitious backyard production of Moby Dick the Musical. Complete with foam whales, a fog machine, and golden harpoons. Right?
Okay.
There's
Carried
more-
by children, I hope.
If I let this thing go on, I mean, really, AI would just go on. It was like 5 pages long. I cut it, but it was just like, gosh, details. I'm talking details. I mean, torn between her personal relationships and her loyalty to the lawn chair players. I mean, it's like all this stuff that's like these relationships. There's a plot twist. Anyway, filled with witty dialogue, catchy tunes, and plenty of small town charm, Broadway Backwards and Bingo is a comedic celebration of creativity, community, and the universal dream of feeling like a star. So
That's sweet.
right? So, and this is meant to be specific to you. Now, granted, some of this is a little bit of a miss because apparently you were in The Wedding Singer and a bunch of other shows that you weren't in. But so there's some of this that's a little, you're like, oh, well, okay. But here's your character description, okay? And then we could read the scene. So, Maddie Beaumont, the diva of Wickersville with a heart of gold hidden underneath layers of melodrama. She wears flowing scarves,
Okay, well.
speaks in theater jargon,
Ooh.
and firmly believes every backyard production could be her ticket to Broadway. Quirk, it says Quirk. This is like, I guess every character has Quirk.
Yeah, of course.
So Quirk, she calls every rehearsal her Tony audition. I'm going to be Sammy. Sammy is the stagehand, Maddie's loyal but perpetually frazzled assistant director and stage manager. They juggle everything from fixing costumes to keeping Maddie grounded. My quirk is carries a toolbox everywhere, claiming theater is 50% duct tape.
Okay.
So that's what
Well,
we got.
everybody's got a Maddie.
Yeah, right. Everybody's got a Sammy.
Apparently.
Okay, so here's the scene.
Okay, I don't think I can see it. My husband's going to
No,
get
no,
me
that's
some
okay.
glasses.
Okay, do it. You're Maddie.
Okay.
Okay, are we good,
And
Chris?
what's the setup?
Okay, so Maddie and Sammy in the storage closet. Location: a cluttered storage closet in the Wickersville Community Center, filled with old props, costumes, and a surprising number of lawn chairs.
Looks like my basement.
Maddie is frantically searching for a golden harpoon for the big Moby Dick number.
Right.
While Sammy tries to keep her grounded. Okay? Mm-hmm. Here we go. Maddie, holding up a plastic sword.
This will never do, Sammy. Captain Ahab doesn't wield this. This is a pirate's sword. A prop from Peter Pan. Where's the harpoon? I specifically requested golden, shiny, and majestic.
Sammy, holding a coffee cup in one hand and a broken chair leg in the other. You also specifically requested a live seagull for the storm scene. I'm still negotiating with the pet store.
The seagull is integral. It's not just a bird, it's a metaphor.
A metaphor for me losing my mind? Because that's where we're headed.
Do you think they had golden harpoons on Broadway? I guarantee you. If Patti LuPone were playing Ahab.
Maddie, breathe. No one's going to care about the color of the harpoon. It's a backyard production. People just want to sit in lawn chairs, drink lemonade, and see their neighbor in a whale costume.
Backyard production? Backyard production? Sammy, theater is theater, no matter the venue. It doesn't matter if we're performing under the stars or under fluorescent lights. We are telling stories, transporting people, creating magic.
I know, Maddie, but sometimes I think you're so busy chasing Broadway, you forget the magic that's already here.
Sammy, I'm not chasing Broadway. Broadway is chasing me.
Is that why you let Tony Broadway Ricci sweet talk you into ditching us for his big seafood cabaret idea?
It wasn't a seafood cabaret. It was a musical revue with nautical themes.
Maddie, the stage was a lobster tank.
Okay, fine. You know, maybe I did get a little carried away, but Sammy, I can't help it. Every time I see a spotlight, even if it's just a street light, I feel that spark again, like I'm meant for something bigger.
You are meant for something big, Maddie. But big isn't always Broadway. Sometimes it's right here in Wickersville.
Wickersville? Big. You sure about that?
I'm sure. Because when you're on that little stage surrounded by lawn chairs and fireflies, no one shines brighter than you.
No, Sammy. That was beautiful. A little wordy, but beautiful. I'd cut it down by half for the stage version.
Here, found your harpoon.
Ah, perfection! Onward, Sammy! The star must prepare.
And scene!
I mean, seriously, who doesn't want to see that musical?
That's what I'm saying.
I want to produce this musical.
I'll be frank with you. I put like other versions of this. The musicals that they have for you, Michelle. You could have a really long career of all these original musicals. Mm-hmm. Starstruck was the name of another. I mean, it's like there's so many.
You know, I thought I was going to be watching football today, but I'm not. Right. I'm going to be researching all the musicals that come up with my name.
I know. And you could, the thing about it too, you could put in whoever you want. You want to start in a musical with Ethel Merman? Have him write it. Have him write it. You know what I mean?
She's a hot ticket now.
I know. You'll even say something like, yeah, right.
In demand. Yeah, hard to come by.
Hey, ChatGPT, write me a Sondheim musical starring Michele Pawk, Ethel Merman. It'll do it. It's actually pretty and it'll do it in like 30 seconds tops. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I have one last thing that I want to ask you, and it's back to our first question, which was who.
I'm still
really.
No, I'm thinking about me and Ethel Merman.
Hey, listen, if Just in Time doesn't if it doesn't pan out, you talk to Alex and you say Broadway backwards and bingo, pitch the whole thing.
lawn chairs, the musical.
What do you need? It's a backyard production.
Yeah, and
To be honest, you should do
Wickersville.
your own backyard production of Broadway backwards and bingo.
I'm going to do it right back there.
Yeah. Well, hello.
Do you want to audition for the part of Sammy?
I didn't think I had to audition. On that note,
we're seeing people.
Yeah, right. Okay, let me ask you this. I have one funny question for you, and one because you're blessing this podcast. I want you to give me someone that you would give me a guest. I want you to manifest somebody for me to have on. It can't be Ethel Merman. It has to be someone else. We're putting it out into the ether. That's what we're doing.
For you?
To have on here.
Well, the first person that came to mind was Carol Burnett.
Carol Burnett.
Because that would be amazing.
We're dreaming
and
big.
Sure, yeah, well,
I'll take it.
what's the point of dream? Have you not read the Lawn Chair musical? Good heavens, Maddie dreams big.
Right.
But I have to think.
I will take that. I think that's great, actually.
Yeah.
Carol Burnett.
Oh, she just would love you.
I'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out. You heard that, Carol? I got you.
We're coming for you.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, this is my last question for real. When I asked you in the beginning, I asked you, who was your I want to be like you when you were a kid? And now I want to ask you, who is that person now? Who is your I want to be like you now?
You know, I think you mentioned, I mentioned Carol, right? I probably, Carol and Lucy Ball and the funny women.
Yeah.
I always sort of, idolized.
Towards,
And yeah. Who do I want to be now? I just want to be me with my old guy on the couch. And I want to have a vegetable garden. And I want lots of time to sit.
That's
yeah,
really nice.
I think I'm good right now.
Nice. That's really nice. Thank you so much for doing this.
I love you.
Thank you. I love you. That's I Want to Be Like You, episode 1, baby.
AI.
I want to be like you. Hey.
AI.
I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes was produced by Elbi and Christian Cespedes. Special thanks to Angelina Cespedes, Kirsten Blue Kaiser, John Dossett, and of course, Michele Pawk.